Hello everyone, yesas, it's me your teacher Dimitris and welcome back to another Greek basics video, where today we will learn how to conjugate a verb in Greek. Being able to conjugate verbs in Greek is essential for understanding context in a conversation, but for speaking as well. And it goes without saying, reading too. So, let's get started. Today we will go over the present tense, or enistotas as we call it, and we will cover the basics of verb conjugation in Greek. First of all, in Greek verbs, we have two major categories, Group A and Group B. First of all, we're going to look at Group A. On the left here, I have the pronouns, which are very similar to English, with εγώ, εσύ, αυτός, αυτή, αυτό, being I, you, he, she, it, and εμείς, εσείς, being we and you plural. The only exception to this is they, because we have a separate they for each gender. So, αυτοί, αυτές, αυτά means they masculine, they feminine, and they plural. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get back into the verb κάνω. Since in Greek we do not have the infinitive like other languages, such as Italian, the base form of the verb is actually the first person, so just κάνω. To conjugate in Greek, all you have to do is change the ending of the verb or the suffix. In this case, o is the ending, κάνω. And in the second person, it is is, so κάνεις. Then in third person, κάνει. In plural, κάνουμε. Then κάνετε, and lastly, κάνουν. The he, she, it, and they have the same conjugation, so I'm not going to repeat it every time. Alright, and that's exactly how you want to conjugate a verb in the present tense or enistotas. All you have to do is simply replace the ending depending on which person you are using. The endings for enistotas are the following: ο, is, η, ούμε, έτε, ουν, or ούνε. You can take these and apply them to any verb of the first group, and that way you can conjugate pretty much anything, or most things. Let's take a look at another example of this. Let's take the word παίζω, meaning to play. To conjugate this, we have to first look at the ending, which is ο. So for the first person, we just leave it as it is. Now for the second person, let's swap it out with is, which we saw before is the conjugation for the second person for the present tense. So in this case, it will be παίζεις. Then παίζει, παίζουμε, παίζετε, and παίζουν. And that's it. That is all you need to do. Simply changing the ending according to the person you are using. One small tip here, you don't actually have to use the pronouns when using the verbs. What do I mean by this? Παίζω is already conjugated in the first person, and it already means I play. Using εγώ παίζω is a little too much. It's like using it twice. So just παίζω is enough on its own. However, that doesn't mean using the pronoun is incorrect. A lot of times we do use it, but to show more emphasis on the word. One last thing here, the endings that we just learned are completely static. What do I mean about that? Once you learn them, you will be able to use them with any verb of the first category. Now, that's all well and done. They're a little more tricky to learn because they're different from each other, but the good thing is that they won't change down the line. And how to conjugate them again, in theory at least, is very simple. You take the word like κάνω, o you know is the ending, so if you want to conjugate it in a different person, you take the o, you take it out, and you put the correct conjugation you want to use. Let's say we want to say we. In that case, we would say κάνουμε. So we would take ume. Pretty simple, right? Now let's take a look at the Group B verbs. Let's see what the difference is with Group A, and as well how you can differentiate between a Group A verb and a Group B verb yourself. And of course, use the correct conjugation. Let's take a look. Κάνω is group A, and μιλάω, to speak, is group B. We said before the ending is o, right? That applies to both verbs. But what we have to look at is the letter before the ending. For κάνω, that letter is ni. For μιλάω, that letter is a. So the rule is, if before the ending there is a vowel, then the verb is group B. If there is a consonant, it is group A. Now I have to say it is a little bit more nuanced than that. There are other rules to tell you if it is group A or group B. And as well, there exist exceptions in some cases. Now the rule that I just explained to you is a very basic way to tell if a verb is group A or group B. Now that we have an understanding of how to tell if a verb is group A or group B, let's actually take a look at the other conjugations. And we will use the verb μιλάω again. Μιλάω, to speak. Μιλάω or μιλώ for the first person. Μιλάς for the second. Μιλάει, μιλά for the third. Then μιλάμε, μιλούμε. Μιλάτε, μιλάνε, or μιλούν. As you can see here, it is a little different from group A conjugations, but the same logic applies. The endings here are static and can be used with any other verb of group B. The endings themselves are ao, o, sigma, I, me, te, ne, un. Let's try to apply them in a different word. Πάω, for example, which means to go. A very useful word. Πάω, πας, πάει, πάμε, πάτε, πάνε. As you might have noticed here, there are more endings than the group A that we saw before, and some of them have alternative endings. So why do we have two different endings for some persons? The endings come from older iterations of Greek. So if they're older Greek, are they correct to use now? Absolutely. Both of the endings are completely correct to use, and it is up to you, whichever you want to use. Alright, now we know how to conjugate Greek verbs in enestotas, the present tense. Now I know that was quite a bit of information and a lot of things to memorize, but the good thing here is that there are very clear rules as what you need to do to conjugate. As long as you memorize it, you will be all set. However, I do want to show you a couple more word examples of both group A and group B so you can get a better idea. Let's get into that. For group A, we have verbs such as παίζω, πλένω, πηγαίνω, τρέχω, and βάφω. For group B, we have αγαπάω, γελάω, πάω, ακούω, νικάω. Another useful rule is when the stress of the word is at the very end, like μιλώ or γελώ, it is also another sign that this verb is group B. Alright, that was all I wanted to show you about Greek verbs, Greek conjugations, and the tenses too. I know it was quite a lot of information. The hardest part for me, in my opinion, I think, is getting into it in the beginning. Once you are a little bit more accustomed to it, I think things will flow a lot easier. Thank you so much for watching. Excuse the messy hair. I tried to get it down, but I really didn't want to. But I genuinely do hope this video helped you understand how to conjugate verbs in Greek. At least made the whole thing a little bit more easy. I know grammar is still very intimidating. But also, if you have any other suggestions about topics that I should cover, please feel free to let me know. Absolutely, I would love that. As usual, feel free to follow our Instagram page and our newly built TikTok account as well. So yeah, if you like this video, feel free to like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Yassas.